The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Central Park as Howard Reynolds slumped on a bench, the weight of his tailored Italian suit doing nothing to shield him from the chill that had settled in his bones months ago. Next to him, a sleek wheelchair gleamed in the fading light, his daughter Emma staring vacantly ahead, her small fingers curled around a tattered stuffed elephant that had seen better days. She was only 9 years old, but the accident had stolen more than her ability to walk. It had taken her childhood, her laughter, her spirit. Howard watched the families strolling by, their casual happiness like daggers to his heart. What he wouldn't give to see Emma run again, to hear her giggle as she chased butterflies across their Hampton estate. He had exhausted every avenue his fortune could open. Specialists from Switzerland, experimental treatments in Germany, prayers in temples he didn't believe in. The verdict remained cruelly consistent. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds, but she will never walk again." He rubbed his chest, feeling the familiar ache that had become his constant companion. What good was being worth $500 million when he couldn't fix the one thing that mattered? "Sir," a small voice penetrated his dark thoughts. "God told me to give you this, and your pain will go away." Howard looked up, irritation flickering across his face. A boy stood before them, no older than 8, with clothes that hung loosely on his thin frame. His feet were dusty, his face smudged with city grime, but his eyes, they held a clarity that seemed out of place in one so young. In his outstretched palm lay a smooth black stone. "What did you say?" Howard's voice was sharp, protective. The boy stepped closer, undeterred. "God told me to find you, to give you this, and that your pain will go away." Howard stood abruptly, towering over the child. "You think this is funny? You think what we're going through is some kind of game?" The boy remained still, his gaze unwavering. "No, sir, I know what pain is, and I know what God told me." Before Howard could dismiss him, Emma stirred in her wheelchair. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice cracking from disuse. "Can I see it?" Howard hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. The boy placed the stone in Emma's palm. As her fingers closed around it, something flickered across her face. Awareness, curiosity, emotions Howard hadn't seen in months. "What is this?" Howard asked, his anger giving way to confusion. "It helps you remember," the boy replied simply. "Remember what? That you're not alone, and that God didn't leave." Howard felt something shift inside him, an old wound throbbing beneath layers of protective numbness. The boy continued, "If you let me, I can help her. Not with magic, just with faith, the kind that listens." Howard's instinct was to scoff, to have security remove this street child from their presence. But Emma was clutching the stone to her chest, her eyes following the boy with a spark he'd thought extinguished forever. "Please, Daddy," she whispered, "let him try." If you are enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type ZEW. It helps me create even better content for you. Continuing, the Reynolds mansion on Fifth Avenue stood like a fortress of wealth against the Manhattan skyline. Inside, the marble floors and crystal chandeliers reflected a life of privilege that now felt empty to Howard. He'd instructed his staff to prepare the garden room for Emma's sessions with the boy, Billy, he called himself. Mr. Reynolds, Patricia, the head housekeeper who had been with the family for 20 years, approached with concern etched on her face. "Are you certain about this, allowing a street child such access to Emma?" Howard gazed out the window, where Emma sat in the garden, the stone still clutched in her hand, as Billy arranged pebbles in a circle around her wheelchair. "What choice do I have, Patricia? The best doctors in the world have given up." And yesterday she smiled. Actually smiled. Patricia's lips thinned. "It's not proper. What will people say?" "I don't give a damn what people say anymore," Howard snapped. Just make sure he's fed before he leaves. For the next week, Billy came every afternoon. Howard observed from a distance as the boy worked with Emma, teaching her to close her eyes and visualize her legs moving. "Your body remembers how to walk," Billy would say. "It's just scared. We need to remind it that it's safe now." Howard should have found it ridiculous, this child with no education or training, presuming to heal what medicine couldn't. Yet, something about Billy's quiet confidence kept Howard from interfering. That, and the fact that Emma was speaking again, asking questions, engaging with the world. On the 7th day, Howard received a call that pulled him away from his vigil. "Reynolds," he answered curtly. "Mr. Reynolds, it's Dr. Kapoor from Presbyterian. I've been reviewing Emma's latest scans, and there's something unusual I'd like to discuss." Howard's heart thundered. "Unusual how?" "There appears to be increased activity in areas we previously believed were permanently damaged." "I can't explain it, but—" Howard ended the call and rushed to the garden, hope and fear battling within him. What if a miracle was possible? What if Billy was more than just a kind distraction? And what was the connection between this beggar boy and his daughter that seemed to transcend the barriers of class, education, and circumstance? The answer, Howard would soon discover, would shake the very foundations of everything he believed about faith, forgiveness, and the power of the human spirit. When Howard burst into the garden, he found Billy holding Emma's hands as she closed her eyes, her face serene with concentration. The boy was speaking softly, words that sounded like a prayer, but held no religious terminology Howard recognized. "What's happening here?" Howard demanded, his voice sharper than intended. Emma's eyes flew open, and the peaceful moment shattered. "Daddy, you scared us!" Billy released Emma's hands and stepped back, his eyes watchful but unafraid. "We were just practicing feeling," he explained. "Feeling what?" "The earth under her feet," Billy said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Emma needs to remember what it feels like before her body will remember how to do it." Howard knelt beside his daughter's wheelchair. "Sweetheart," Dr. Kapoor called. "He said there's something different in your scans." Emma's eyes widened. "Is that good?" "I don't know yet," Howard admitted. He turned to Billy, studying the boy's thin face. "How are you doing this?" Billy shook his head. "I'm not doing anything, sir. The stone helps her remember, and I just show her how to listen." There was something about the boy's certainty that unnerved Howard, a wisdom that seemed impossible for a child who couldn't be older than 8. "Where do you live, Billy? Who takes care of you?" The boy's expression clouded. "I stay at Holy Cross Shelter most nights. Sister Margaret lets me help in the garden." "And your parents?" Billy's eyes dropped to his worn sneakers. "They're with God now." Howard felt a pang of sympathy. "How long have they been gone?" 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days. Billy replied with the precision of someone who had counted each day of absence. That night, after Billy had left with a packed dinner courtesy of Reynolds' chef, Howard sat in his study, nursing a glass of scotch. The boy's words echoed in his mind, along with Dr. Kapoor's cautious optimism. 3 years ago. What had happened to Billy's parents? Howard reached for his laptop and began searching news archives from 3 years prior. Car accidents, house, fires, workplace tragedies. He scrolled through countless stories of loss until a headline caught his eye. Reynolds transport truck involved in fatal collision. 2 dead, child sole survivor. The glass slipped from Howard's hand, shattering. On the hardwood floor, the world seemed to tilt as Howard stared at the article, the details burning into his consciousness. A Reynolds transport truck had run a red light, striking a compact car and killing both adults inside instantly. Their child, a 5-year-old boy, had survived with minor injuries. The company had settled quietly, the driver fired, the record sealed by court order. The family's name, Miller, William Billy Miller. The room spun around Howard as the truth crashed over him in waves. Billy, the beggar boy with the healing stone, was the orphan his company had created, the child whose life had been shattered by a Reynolds employee's negligence, was now trying to heal Howard's daughter. Why hadn't he recognized the name? The answer was simple and damning. Howard had delegated the entire aftermath to his legal team. He had never once looked at the victims' names, never considered the lives destroyed by the truck bearing his family name. And now, this child had come to offer healing instead of hatred, forgiveness instead of vengeance. How do we move forward when the pain we caused comes back to save us? The next morning, Howard waited for Billy with a storm brewing inside him. When the boy arrived, Howard led him to his private study, a room few were ever permitted to enter. "Billy," Howard began, his voice strained, "I need to ask you something important. Do you know who I am? I mean, truly know?" Billy gazed around at the mahogany shelves, the awards, the family photographs. His eyes landed on the Reynolds transport, logo displayed prominently on a model truck. For a moment, something flickered across his face, a shadow of recognition. "You're Emma's dad," he finally said. Howard's throat tightened. "Yes, but my company, Reynolds Transport. Does that name mean anything to you?" Billy's small hand moved unconsciously to his chest, as if pressing against an old wound. "That was the name on the truck," he said, softly. "The one that took my parents away." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken grief. "Then why?" Howard's voice cracked. "Why would you help Emma? Why would you help me?" Billy's eyes, so young yet unfathomably deep, met Howard's. "Because she needs help, and because Sister Margaret says forgiveness heals the one who gives it even more than the one who receives it." Howard sank into his chair, overcome. "You knew all along?" Billy nodded. "God didn't send me to punish you, Mr. Reynolds. He sent me to show that love is stronger than pain." In that moment, Howard Reynolds, titan of industry, master of Manhattan real estate, controller of fortunes, broke down completely before a child who had every reason to hate him but had chosen healing instead. If not everyone in the Reynolds household welcomed Billy with open arms, rumors began circulating among the staff. The boy was a con artist, they whispered, a thief waiting for the right moment, perhaps even a danger to Emma. Dr. Davidson, Emma's primary physician, voiced his concerns most strongly. "Mr. Reynolds, I must insist you stop this charade," he said during his weekly house call. "False hope is crueler than acceptance. Whatever games this boy is playing with Emma's imagination, they cannot change the physical reality of her condition." Howard might have agreed a month ago. But now he had seen Emma wiggle her toes, just slightly but deliberately, for the first time since the accident. He had watched color return to her cheeks and light to her eyes. "The boy stays," Howard declared, brooking no argument, "and I want new scans scheduled immediately." That evening, Patricia approached Howard as he worked in his study. "Sir," she began hesitantly, "there's been an incident." Howard looked up sharply. "What kind of incident?" "Emma is experiencing pain in her legs, severe pain. The staff is concerned that the boy's exercises may be causing damage." Howard rushed to Emma's room, where he found her crying, Dr. Davidson already examining her. "What's happening?" Howard demanded. Dr. Davidson's face was grim. "This is what I warned about. Her body is being pushed beyond its capabilities. This therapy must stop." Emma reached for her father's hand. "But Daddy, Billy says the pain means feeling is coming back. He says it's good pain." Howard looked from his daughter to the doctor, torn between medical expertise and the inexplicable progress they'd witnessed. "Where is Billy now?" he asked. "We sent him away," Patricia answered, "for Emma's safety." The look of betrayal on Emma's face cut Howard to the core. He turned to his staff, his voice steel. Find him. Bring him back. Now. Have you ever known someone who found healing in the most unexpected places? How did they discover their path to recovery? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. The search for Billy lasted through the night. Howard dispatched security to Holy Cross shelter, but Sister Margaret hadn't seen him in days. "He's been staying with you folks," she explained, concern etching her weathered face. "Has something happened?" By morning, Howard was frantic. Emma refused comfort, clutching the black stone and repeating, "Billy said not to give up. Billy promised the pain meant healing." Howard paced the marble halls of his mansion, feeling the walls closing in. How had a beggar boy become so essential to their lives? And what if they couldn't find him? As dawn broke over the city, Howard's phone rang. "Mr. Reynolds," his head of security reported. "We found him. Central Park by the Bethesda fountain." Howard grabbed his coat. "Bring the car around, now." They found Billy sitting on the fountain's edge, tossing breadcrumbs to pigeons. He looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable in the early morning light. "Billy." Howard approached slowly, as one might a frightened animal. "Why did you leave?" The boy didn't look up. "Your doctor said I was hurting Emma. I never wanted to hurt her." Howard sat beside him, not caring that the damp stone would ruin his $1,000 suit. "Emma says the pain is part of healing. Is that true?" Billy nodded. "When something's been asleep for a long time, it hurts when it wakes up. Like when your foot falls asleep and then gets all prickly." Such simple wisdom, yet it rang with truth. Howard had experienced something similar in his own heart, the painful awakening of emotions long dormant. "Emma needs you," Howard said, softly. "I need you." Billy looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "You're not mad at me?" Howard shook his head. "No. I'm mad at myself. For not seeing what was right in front of me, for hiding behind money instead of facing pain." He offered his hand to the boy. "Will you come back, please?" Billy hesitated, then placed his small hand in Howard's much larger one. "Emma still has the stone. She won't let it go. Then there's still hope." The journey back to the Reynolds mansion was quiet, each lost in their thoughts. But when they arrived, they found the household in chaos. "Sir!" Patricia rushed to meet them at the door. "It's Emma. She's—" Howard pushed past her, racing toward his daughter's room, Billy close behind. Inside, they found Emma sitting up in bed, her face flushed with excitement and effort. "Daddy! Billy! Look!" As they watched, Emma swung her legs, slowly, painfully, but deliberately, over the side of the bed. "Dr. Davidson gave me medicine for the pain, and then I remembered what Billy taught me, about talking to my legs, about believing." Howard stood frozen in disbelief, but Billy moved forward, taking Emma's hands in his. "Ready?" he asked. Emma nodded, her face set with determination. With Billy steadying her, Emma pushed herself up from the bed. For 3 heartbeats, she stood on trembling legs that doctors had declared would never function again. Then she collapsed, but not in defeat, in triumph and exhaustion. Howard surged forward, catching her in his arms. "You did it, sweetheart," he whispered through tears. "You stood." Dr. Davidson, who had witnessed everything from the doorway, removed his glasses in shock. "This is unprecedented," he stammered. "I need to run tests to understand what's happening." But Howard knew tests couldn't explain the miracle unfolding before them. Science couldn't measure the power of a child's faith or the healing force of forgiveness. That evening, Howard called for a celebration. The dining room that had sat largely unused since the accident was filled with light, music, and the entire household staff. Emma was the guest of honor, seated proudly in her wheelchair, but now with hope glowing in her eyes. Beside her sat Billy, looking slightly uncomfortable in new clothes Howard had insisted on purchasing for him. Howard stood, raising his glass. Today, we witnessed something extraordinary, something beyond medical explanation or logical understanding. His gaze fell on Billy, this child who had lost everything yet harbored no bitterness. This boy came to us as a stranger, bearing nothing but a stone and unshakable faith. He gave my daughter back her future, not with sophisticated treatments or expensive therapies, but with something far more powerful: belief. Howard moved around the table until he stood behind Billy's chair, placing his hands on the boy's thin shoulders. 3 years ago, a terrible tragedy occurred. A tragedy caused by my company, though I was too removed, too insulated by wealth to feel its impact. That tragedy took Billy's parents from him. A murmur of shock ran through the assembled staff. By all rights, this child should despise the name Reynolds. Instead, he came to heal, to forgive. Howard placed a document on the table before Billy. This is a legal guardianship application. If you'll allow it, Billy, I'd like to give you a home here with us, not out of guilt or obligation, but because you become family. Billy stared at the paper, then up at Howard, his eyes wide. But I'm just... You are exactly who we needed, Howard finished for him, and so much more than I ever deserved to find. That night, as New York's lights twinkled beyond the windows, 3 broken souls began to heal, not as Millionaire and Beggar, but as father, daughter, and the boy who had taught them both to believe again. For in the end, it wasn't wealth that saved them, but the most priceless gift of all, the courage to open their hearts, even when opening meant pain before healing could begin. The black stone sat on Emma's nightstand, its purpose fulfilled. It had never been magical, merely a focal point for faith, a tangible reminder that sometimes the most powerful healing comes from the most unlikely sources. And sometimes the hands that lift us from our darkest moments belong to those we least expect to help. Congratulations, type 9 in the comments, so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.